All right. Okay. Okay. And we are officially live. So happy to be here with you, my love, sharing
Thanks, babe.
space with you. And so, good afternoon, everybody, on our last Women's History Month live session where we are paying homage and spotlighting amazing women in life. And I, of course, could not go any farther in the month without spotlighting the number one
Gas me
woman
up. Gas me up.
in my life, Mrs. Stephanie Mayweather. How are you, my love?
Thank you for having me. When you asked me, I was going to give you a hard no, but this is my year of saying yes to things that make me uncomfortable. So here I am. And I want to just say it's a privilege to be here.
Yes. For folks who don't know, a little background, I've been asking my wife to do these things with me for years. So this is not a new request, but this is a new answer, right? And so, a lot of folks know a little bit about us, but don't really know how much you contributed to doing the good work. And so before we get started and talking about your year of yes, because I think that is got some meaty stuff, I want to say for folks, doing the good work really started with Stephanie. She saw a video of The Breakfast Club with Gary Vee on it as an interviewee. And she was like, I think you would like this guy. I think he and you have some things in common. And so as you said that, I was like, okay, let's do this, right? Like, let me watch it. And what I got from it is that anybody can start a business based on anything they have passion for. And what you saw me having passion for was for the work that I was doing with students, staying working extra nights, working on Sundays on curriculum, taking time out of our time and so, I'm thankful for you for that, right? I also want to speak on the first website that you designed for me, right? You're creative in so many ways. People don't even know, like, my first website design was trash. That's just not that's just not my thing. But you came in and was like, no, we're not going to put this out, right? And you've been that sounding board for doing the good work, for presentations, for program proposals, for conference proposals, for any kind of product that I've launched. Now you're kind of supporting us in the courses. I'm thankful for you. And I just want to make sure I first acknowledge that.
You're welcome.
Oh.
You're welcome. We're a team. As you rise, I rise. So you doing well means I'm doing well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And I'm also going to say, like, this is a space for you to kind of talk about what you feel women should be hearing. Most of my audience are women, and I feel like I'm doing a better job at acknowledging, where I've come from, but also trying to acknowledge where I want to go. And a part of that is making sure that I give voice to women as much as possible. And so you talked about this being the year of yes, and I know that's like a book in some way or shape or form. And so talk about, like, how did you get to this year of yes, and what are you trying to get out of this year?
Okay, so it is a book by Shonda Rhimes, which I have read probably 3 times before. Because first, I love Shonda Rhimes, but I like the concept of like saying yes to the things that scare you and kind of having that viewpoint of like, why not me? Why can't I do this? I have been in therapy for a few years. So I've done a lot of self-reflection over time. And first, I guess coming into this year, a lot of things coming into this year. So we just had a baby. Right.
Yes.
So I feel like last year was just all about baby, right? All about me making sure that I was in a good mental space, that physically things were well. This was definitely a harder pregnancy than with Justin. I'm gonna say, because it was 7 years later. You know, it's ghetto being pregnant at 35, and so it was a learning curve, right? But also because it's been so long, I felt like it's like a new start, right? It's almost like the first pregnancy, like learning all over again. And so this year, I just wanted to focus on me and push myself to grow even more. And so the year started off with having like some really hard conversations. And so I go to therapy probably twice a month, so every 2 weeks usually. And there were conversations. It's all about like creating boundaries. And there were conversations with special people in my life that I needed to have that I've been putting off for months and months. I won't say who those people are. Let's just say family, friends.
Very important people.
Very important people. And I tell myself going into this year, like, I am going to have these conversations no matter how difficult they are. Like, I'm going to push myself because I can be passive sometimes and I can kind of sweep things under the rug. But I was like, I'm just going to push forward.
You said first it was really important for you to have these conversations with these people. What kind of did that bring some kind of confidence? Did that bring some kind of tranquility, some kind of harmony? What was that doing for you?
So since then I've had those conversations. I would say that it was a weight lifted off of me. And I love to be transparent, and it's really hard for me not to say who the people were and what the conversations were about. But I ain't trying to make nobody mad today. And so, right, I think over the past few years, all of us have gone through the pandemic. We've lost a lot of loved ones, especially you and I. And I think it's just a constant reminder to like live life. Like, I don't know how long we're going to be here, right? Everyone wants it to be forever. I want to grow old. I want to see my children grow old, but we don't know what's going to happen, right? And so I just have to take it day by day of like, how am I living my life on a daily basis? Am I saying the things that I need to say? And I'm trying to live without regret, right? And so there were certain conversations that I felt if I didn't have them today, tomorrow there's regret. Tomorrow I'm thinking about it. The next day I'm thinking about it. The next month, like they don't just go away. And so I have to have them. And why not do it now than have all the anxiety building up over time? So that's kind of where I was.
Right. Because what I'm hearing you say is like avoidance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Brings
I'm good at
anxiety.
that. I'm good at that. I can avoid you all day.
This is true. This is very true. But now that you say you've gotten some therapy, what has that done for you as far as addressing the avoidance, right? Because I think a lot of times people just think, oh, you're supposed to get in therapy, then you just change, right? And that's not necessarily how these things happen. And so what was that process for you, and how did that create space for you to address the avoidance?
Well, let me say, I have been very specific in who I have chosen to be my therapist. So far, I've had 2 therapists. They have both been Black, amazing women. And that's a preference for me. Whatever works for other people is fine. But I knew that based on the jobs that I had, the communities that I was working in, I worked with a lot of people who do not look like me. And I didn't need a learning curve from my therapist. I needed someone who understood what it was like as a Black woman to work in a workspace where most people don't look like you, and there are microaggressions, et cetera, et cetera. And talking about my job or where I worked over these past, 5, 6 years has been a big part of what I've talked about. So that was very important to me. I also have shown up in each session as authentic as possible. I know, especially when you're starting out, it's easy to like hide parts of yourself from your therapist, right? Because I'm paying that person to listen to me, so I can tell them whatever I want to tell them. And we kind of learned that lesson with you, friend, when you got started with therapy and didn't show up but that's for another day. I will take a moment to say, in your Facebook post, when you were kind of marketing this, you highlighted all the things I've done to like help you grow and doing the good work. And I'm going to tell you that one of the best things that I ever did was push you into therapy.
Say that one more time.
One of the best things I've ever done for you personally and professionally was pushed you towards therapy? And I asked, remember, I started because I had my own issues. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm learning a lot. I feel like our marriage was getting better. And I was like, babe, you should go to therapy. And you were like, okay, yep. And I was like, babe, you should find a therapist. And you were like, yep, okay. And months went by and a year went by. And I was like, hey, you want me to find you a therapist? Like, what are we waiting for? But you finally got in. And I think that over time, you have grown so much. Like, I like to call you are we at like DAR 3.0 now? Like the man that I met.
Oh, sure,
the man that I met and married is not the same man that, I mean, a lot, the core of you, of who I was attracted to and who I love is the same. But you've just grown in so many ways. And I know that it is due to therapy. And I'm really proud of you for taking that step and for pushing other people. Because, you know, when you have a good therapist and you're having good conversations and you're seeing growth, then you'd be like, hey, yeah, that sounds good. Have you thought about seeing a therapist? You start pushing everybody, you know, parents that they don't want to, but everybody.
I will openly say, like, I've been very transparent about that process and journey, you know, with this community, because I think doing the good work, you know, I think the goal of it is to just try to be good as possible. You know, it's not about trying to achieve greatness in all things, right? I don't think that's the case for everybody. But I think that I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you even pushing me, because that process was twofold. You know, it was, I needed to unload a lot, right? And that was that first therapist, having somebody that's like, I just need to speak this truth. And I need a space where I can do it so that I don't feel wrong about the feelings that I have. And I think as men, we oftentimes don't validate our own feelings. We just push through or push over it, or, you know, push it under the rug, under the bed, until it blows up and explodes and you about to rip a steering wheel off or something, you know, like anything wild, right? And these are all personal experiences, right? But I think it's also like having somebody who, like you, who is interested in the stories that come out of therapy, right? Because people, those can be shameful moments. And if you don't have a partner that's like, tell me how it went, what's going on, you can be honest with me, you can be open with me. It doesn't encourage, especially a man who never really had somebody who's like, tell me how you feel. It can be challenging when you don't have somebody that, you know, that place where you feel shame, blame, and guilt, and then you come home and then you feel even more of it. Right. Yeah. And so I'm thankful for you to just being accepting of my story, right? Because be real, like there's a lot of harm that has been done by me, on me, with women of all different identity, all different groups, right? And so there's a lot of unlearning that had to happen, but then some relearning. And that's where the second space came in. I was like, I really want a therapist that is kind of like a coach, right? That can give me some direction.
Are you talking about your current therapist?
Our current therapist.
Yeah, so funny story, right? We moved to North Carolina.
Before you get there, right, I want to also acknowledge the people in the chat, right? Before we get there, because we already rolling, right? We already rolling. Shout out to Ann Phillips. She said, I love that. Those tough conversations are required. Beautiful transparency. Thank you. Right. Lynn said, not living without regret. Yes, Stephanie. Right. Ann Phillips coming back with your preference directly linked to your growth. I hear you, your authentic self. Let go there. Let's go there. Right. Let's go. We going there, Ann. Okay. We going there. So let's talk about how we got our therapist. How did we?
Well, all right. So we moved to a new state, new city. And I was like, got to find a therapist, right? Thinking about insurance, but whatever. So I go to psychologytoday.com, or actually maybe I went to, what's the site? I can't think of it, but she has a podcast. It helps you find Black women who are therapists. Therapy for Black women? Therapy for
Black women, yeah, I think.
Okay, I think I started there, which led me down the rabbit hole. Anyway, found this woman.
Too, right?
Yeah, and a podcast. And so I was looking for someone who could be a coach because at that time I was like, I'm trying to write this book. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I am still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. But found this woman and I was like, oh, she's great. You know, we had our first meeting. It was a lot different from my first therapy. Like there were intake forms and everything. Like this woman took notes when we talked, whereas my other one just was kind of free flowing, but both were equally great. And so I'm pushing you again, like, all right, it's time for you to go find your therapist. And he's looking and he finds his therapist. And, well, you know, I'm excited. I'm like, when's your next appointment? And then I get a call from my therapist's office and they say, hey, someone really close to you wants to do therapy with us. And we want to make sure it's not a conflict of interest. And I'm like, I'm in North Carolina. I don't even really know nobody here. I don't know what she's talking about. And I'm like, it's not a problem. I hang up the phone. And I'm like, is my mom in therapy? And it takes a minute and finally it clicks. And I go in the room and I say, Dar, so what did you pick for your therapist? And he's like, oh, I don't know the name of the practice. But he's like, yeah, Katrina. And I'm like, my Katrina? Like, out of all of the, and there were a lot of Black women to choose from, thankfully, in
Yeah.
this, you know, in
Not a lot of
surrounding
Black men,
cities.
I'll tell you that. Not a lot of Black
Um,
men in North
and I'm
Carolina.
like, how is it that you picked the same person? So funny enough, we have the same therapist and she's doing a great job.
She's doing amazing with us, right? You know, amazing with us.
And we've never had like marital counseling. So we've never talked to her together. So it's funny because like I'll bring something up about you and like she keeps the line straight. She's not like, yeah, well, Dar said, but I know she has the knowledge and that kind of helps me because I know she's talking to you and probably helping me and helping you in some ways. Anyway, just a good setup.
And so, you know, and that process for me has helped me be a better husband, for sure, a better and more forgiving father, because I feel like I hold a lot of guilt as a father and not having the time that I want with my son. But I know that that's coming. Well, it's our older son, right? But I know that that's coming once I finish my, you know, my degree, because that's just a lot of time and energy and space. But it also will
Can
help
I
me
ask
be
you
a
a
better
question?
husband. Yeah,
How
absolutely.
many hours in a day do you think you should be spending with Justin?
You know, I don't know. I never quantify. I feel like it feels like it should be all the hours, right? Like that's what it feels like,
And
you
I
know.
think that's a part of the problem. We love our children, but like y'all will sit and play video games for hours to the point where I have to be like, hey, I'm here. Your other son is here. Come see about us. And so you are very hard on yourself. You give a lot of time to us, to your sons. And hopefully one day you'll see that. But you can be super hard. Like,
you know, and if this was about me, we can go even deeper, right?
yeah, but let's bring it back to me because
It is
this is
not.
it's Women's Month and it's about me.
Well, and I think you were getting to something that I think is really important for us to talk about is this yes. Like, what else has this year of yes garnered for you, right? Like, what else has that given you, what else has it put in your life in more perspective so that you can give more energy to the things that you think you've been put on this earth for?
Sure. So I'll say family. I think a lot of times when you ask people, you know, kind of to rank what the most important things are to them, a lot of times family is up there, top three. You know, it's like God, family, X, right? And I think sometimes it's easy to say that, but not actually do it. And so for me, us having a child, well, if we even go back to our first child, I've been able to reflect on our relationship and kind of how it started and me as a mom, right? I think for any of us as a first time mom, you don't know what the F you're doing. I'm not gonna curse, but you have no idea. Like I read the books, I tried to get advice, right? But until you're in it and you're like, oh, I am responsible for this human being for keeping them alive. This is hard. I haven't taken a shower. I'm hungry. Like all the things, you really don't get it. And I dealt with some postpartum when I had Justin, but I wasn't really aware of it. I think I just thought like I'm being a mom and it's hard, right? And I think you and my mother saw it and kind of, pointed it out. But at that time, I didn't really know what it was. Like I think about one of the episodes of Blackish, Tracy Ellis, they have another baby and she goes through it. And I remember watching that episode and like tearing up because I was like, I really hadn't seen an example of what that looked like for a woman before. And the feelings coming back of like, oh, this is how I felt. Oh, I felt really sad. Oh, I wasn't bonding as well as maybe I wanted to with my son. Why was that? And so I've been able to deal with that in therapy and kind of forgive myself for it, because even when even if you put a name to it or you have a better understanding of what it is, you still feel like I failed in some way or I didn't do things to the best of my ability. And therapy has helped me kind of let go of that and focus on the present, right, of making our relationship better. I think also with Jackson, it's a whole panini out here, and I was not trying to send him to daycare if I didn't have to. And what I said to you when I got pregnant was, oh, I'm having a baby, I'm leaving my job. Now, I had said that before in the past, and you were like, yeah, financially, that's not going to happen. And even now, right, it's tight. Like we're figuring it out. But it was very important for me to be at home with him and not miss those moments. And I feel like, I am his person, right? Like when he is inconsolable and, it's me who he wants, which is really cool. I'm sure maybe that says more about me, but that's the mom experience I thought I would have that I didn't have as much with Justin, right? Of course, I fed him and we spent time together, but like in those moments where he was inconsolable, he was like, where's my father or my grandma? And I felt rejected because I was like, I'm trying, I'm here, I'm loving on you, I'm feeding you, right? But it just didn't work out that way. And so in this year of yes, I think saying yes to me and what I want is a part of that, right? Leaving my job was extremely hard. I know that I got on your nerves because I was like, I'm gonna leave. Oh, maybe I go back for 6. Maybe I just work from home. Should I go back today? I ain't going back, right? Not going back. The next day, so should I just go back for like a couple weeks? Like it was up and down. One, because I think it's a privilege, right, to leave my job and stay at home with my child. Like I very much understand that. But it was almost, I had a feeling of like, do I deserve to do that? Should I, can I, right? And I think women of other colors do it all the time, right? And not to say that they don't have guilt either, but it was almost like I didn't feel like I could or I deserved to, or like it was my right to be able to stay at home with my child. And so that was like saying yes to me, to being like, you can have this.
That's good. That's good. Because we put self-worth. And so first I want to say, what up, Mike? I appreciate you, bro. Shout out to the village. I want to also, again, folks, if you got questions, if you got comments, put them in the chat. I'll definitely make sure to ask them of Stephanie, or we answer them and address them. But the strong Black woman, right, does everything, right? Like the strong Black woman has a 9-to-5 with a business with multiple kids, owns a house, got the cars, got the clothes. Like she don't need a man.
INDEPEND. And that's been a big thing that I've worked on in therapy, right? Like dismantling this strong Black woman notion, idea. Like it is very pervasive in our community. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, no, I reject that. I got a husband and he gonna come watch these kids too.
Ooh.
But it took me a while to get to that place, right? Because I was raised like, I am strong, I can do anything and everything, right? Especially if you have a mom who has raised you in a single parent household, right? They've had to do it all. Shout out to the single parent moms, because I don't know how you do it. I pray that I don't ever have to do it that way, because it's hard. It's hard with you. It's hard. So I can't imagine me alone trying to figure it out. Now I know with God's grace, I will be able to do it, but I don't want to have to. And so I think that's been a hard a hard feat to like push up against that, especially like, my mom, that's how she was raised, to be a strong Black woman. And so we teach our children what we know or what we've experienced. And so she's, you know, love my mom, but you cook, you clean, you got a husband, you do these things, you show up, you do all the things for your children, you go to work, right? And you really don't complain or you get it done. Well, I, like I said, I reject it. Some days I don't want to be strong.
And we don't really talk about like how unhealthy that really is, right? To feel like you have to do it all alone. We don't really talk about the consequences of having to do that. And then on the flip side, we don't, when a man is doing the same things,
Father of the year,
he's like the moniker, he's like the prototype of what every man should be, and he gets celebrated as such, when women do it all the time, and it's just like, that's motherhood.
Oh, yeah. Right. I can't tell you how many times I heard other people say that you were a great father, which you are. Like, you absolutely deserve that. I'm not taking that away from you, but didn't really hear you're a great mom as much. And we could be doing the same things, but because of history and men not being around in people's lives, and when you do see an example of it, you celebrate it. But it's like, what about the mom who's there day in and day out doing the hard work? And I mean, I get Mother's Day, right? But all year round, we should be celebrating moms, because without them, no one is here.
There is no civilization, right? And there's no such thing as civilized without women, and I thoroughly believe that. You even think about, stories of like how they, extended to the West and how it was the wild, wild West or whatever. And you will hear the stories of women being the equalizer, right? Whether it was in service or whether it was in entertainment, whatever it was, women were the people that civilized these towns, right? That created these spaces where people wanted to settle. And I don't think we, as men, we don't talk enough about, like, when we say settling down, right? That's not just about being with a woman. It's about being in a space to create family that people feel safe, and that starts with your woman, right? And it extends to your children, and then to your family, and then right. And that's what I think the beauty of what people have seen in our relationship is that people can come into this space, into our home, and feel like it's a place that they can be welcomed, and that's what women do. And so I'm just thankful for you, right, for your growth, your development, because you have pushed me to be a more welcoming individual, a more open individual, a less racist, less homophobic, less sexist individual, and that's important, because accountability, a lot of times when you're a man and you're leading, quote unquote, you're told to lead your family, when the reality is, like, I needed to step back at a time and let you lead. I needed to step back at a time and let you be the breadwinner. I needed that. That was a calling upon God for us to change me, but also to change you. And so, is there any?
I don't know how I feel about the word let me lead, because
God put it on our lives for us to lead each other. Again, that's the sexism, right? Like the centering of me is something that I need to work on. And I'm thankful that I have somebody like you who says, no, like, actually, it's not a let.
You ain't let me do nothing.
And so, if you want to talk a little bit about that, about how we've balanced this, it's this never ending change of, it's never 50-50 type ideology.
Well, another thing that I want to say is me being at home. I mean, the goal is for the next year. It's not just about being at home with my child. It's also about me taking time to just figure out what I want, right? To be able to know that like where I was in my career, where I was working, like it wasn't fulfilling. And so like, what do I want to do next? Right. So I'm not just like at home taking care of a child, even though that is very hard. After being home, I had a thought the other day where I was like, it would be much easier to go to work than to stay at home. Like it's much, even with the stress at work, it's much easier to go to work and disconnect and get to it than to be here like caring for a person who got all these needs and can't tell me what they want. Like this is one of the hardest jobs ever. So it would be much easier to go back to work, but I'm on a journey, right, to figuring out what I want to do next. I know with no job is it perfect. Like there's always going to be parts of it that you dislike, and your job can't always be your passion, right? Sometimes you just got to go make some money and bring it home so that you can live the lifestyle you want to live or survive for some people. I get that. So I'm not looking for like my passion to be my job, but I do want to figure out like what my next step is. And therapy helped me to get to that point because of course my therapist asked like, so if you leave your job, what's the worst thing that could happen? Ooh. And I thought about it for a while. And that's one of my favorite questions that I ask myself in a lot of things.
Say that one more time.
In leaving my job, my therapist asked, what is the worst thing that could happen? You leave your job, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I thought about it and I said, I would have to go find a new job. And for me, if that's the worst thing that can happen, then I'm gonna take this chance. You know, it might be 3 months from now because things always happen. Something happens and we like, hey, we need some extra income. I need to go back to work. If that gives me 2 more months with my child at home, I'm taking it. So yeah, being on this journey of kind of like figuring out what I want, what feels good for me, what brings me joy. Because again, like I have had a job for quite some years, right? I worked in undergrad. I was a teacher after that. I went back to grad school. I worked through grad school and then job, right? So even the thought of being dependent on you is hard. Like, not that I don't think that you can provide for us, but that independence of like, well, also I like to travel and shop and eat and do what I want to do. And so not that I won't be able to do those things, but
what? You like things. You like things.
I like what I like. Okay. I like luxury. Okay. And experiences. Yes. I love luxury. And so I'm not going to sit around and wait for you to tell me no. Okay. I'm going to go to work and get what I want. And so it's definitely a shift, but we're balancing all that. And I think I'm able to do this because you and I are in a good space, right? I think what you have told me over and over again is that you want me to be happy. You want me to find my happy. You are very supportive of my pursuit in that, right? Because we both know like I can't make you happy and you can't make me happy, right? I have to find joy for myself, and then we come together as two happy, well people, right? And enjoy happiness together. And so, just figuring it out. We talk a lot. We have a lot of tough conversations, and again, therapy has pushed me towards that as well, right?
So shout out, you getting all the juice in the chat. So I just want to again shout out to the chat, shout out folks who are on here. Lynn, she says, yes indeed, Stephanie, I hear you. Parenting is the hardest job I have ever had. Daily
ever.
Like I see it every day, and I'm thankful for you for taking that on. I know in ways that I can't, right? And shout out to Lynn for doing the same thing, right? And says you both changed the narrative and worked the 50-50 to become whole. Example of a growth mindset marriage. Ooh, growth mindset marriage. I might have to do a little research on that. I like growth mindset, Dweck, her work. But yes, I like that. I'm gonna have to think about that in the Rolodex. Diane Dodson said, awesome. Christian said, I can absolutely relate to what you are saying, right? Listen.
Yeah. And we were given a gift, a very wonderful gift by my Aunt Rochelle when we got married. She said, it is never going to be 50-50.
Never.
Let that go. Right. Because that's what you're told. Right. Like, I bring my 50, you bring your 50, we make 100. Right. She's like, you're going to have your ups and downs. Sometimes he is going to pull more of the weight. Sometimes you are, but don't go in it expecting 50-50, because marriages change and shift over time.
I hope that folks are hearing that, right? From the mouth of, and in my eyes, an expert on relationships, right? An expert on dating in her own right, and this is true, in a lot of ways, sometimes you don't even feel like you're giving what you're even giving, and I even sat up for a long time when we decided that I was able to take my pay cut, $40,000 with a home and a kid in daycare, right, with a mortgage bill and a mortgage bill at the school for him going to school. You were like, you're doing good. Like let's not try to make it less than what you were going through something. And that's again what the therapy had did for me. It was like, like I had already put all of my value in the family as financial contribution. And I had to sit and talk with you after my sessions and just, hearing you say like, no, like these other things are also very important, right? And as men, I think we oftentimes get trapped in this idea that if we're not bringing the financial stability or creating the opportunity for the luxury, that we're not being good husbands, not good men, right? Not good fathers. And having a woman who can see that is critical. And so, we talk about, you talked about joy, right? Because I think everybody wants to love. Everybody wants the love lasting marriage, everlasting feeling that you get from signing a document with the state, right? But the reality for me is it started with joy, right? It started with just enjoying each other's time. And so you talked a little bit about finding that joy. What has that journey been so far for you? And what do you think you're going in the next level with this joy thing?
Great question. I'm just trying to do more of the things that I like and I love. What I've also learned in these 5-6 short years, right, is that we're going to grow regardless, right? It's important that I focus on me, which is a hard concept for a lot of people, especially in a marriage, right? Because I've heard people call it selfish, right? But what I found for us is that if I continue to pour into me and work on me, and you continue to pour into you and work on you, we become better people and even better for each other. And we get to share those accomplishments and that joy together, right? So me going to therapy twice a month brings me joy, because I get to sit and talk to somebody about my thoughts and my feelings, and there's no interruption and there's no background. They don't know about, I tell her a lot, but there's no self-interest in it, right? And I love that, right? And sometimes it's not even that deep. We're just talking about what happened on a TV show or something, whatever. So that brings me joy. Of course, spending time with my family brings me joy, but something that my previous therapist taught me, because she asked me like, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? And I said, spending time with my family. She said, yeah, but that takes some work. And I was like, And she was like, yes, right. You like spending time with your son, but it's a little bit of a job. Like you have to do something, right? There's some responsibility there. And I was like, oh, yeah, there is. So like spending time with friends, which has been difficult because pandemic, but also moving to a new state where I'm not with family and friends. I can't just call up my homegirl and be like, let's go to happy hour. That's been difficult, but my best friend is coming to visit this Sunday, and I've planned a couple trips, and a friend might be meeting me in Vegas. So trying to get those moments make me really happy, right? Music makes me happy. So listening to music, reading makes me happy. What makes me even more happy about reading is reading books by Black women. And so you can ask Zara, I have lots of books. I ain't read them all, but a Black woman comes out with a new book, I'm gonna get it, right?
Yeah.
And even just looking at it and seeing it on the wall or my bookshelf brings me joy, because I also know that someday I'm gonna write my own book. So something to aspire to and look towards.
I like that you said, I know that someday I'm gonna write my book. These are the little things, right? The little things that really get me excited, right, about your life, you know? And so, yeah, I just love that you said, like, I know, right? That is good. That is good. Sorry, keep going.
Well, also because we've been on this journey, right? And I started writing a book 5 years ago, and self-doubt crept in, and I got a new job, which was all consuming, and that crept in. And then I just didn't want to write it, but a lot of it was fear and doubt. And I realize that now. At the time, I didn't see that, right? And so working through my own fear and doubt, and again, asking myself that question, like, what's the worst that could happen? I write a book, I put it out, and nobody reads it. But I did it, and I'll probably know what to do better the next time. But it's still hard to get to that point, right? Because I also have anxiety and there's some perfectionism in there. And so if I'm gonna put something out, right, it gotta be the best thing that you ever read. Well, of course, that delays me actually doing it because I'm trying to perfect it.
And if I can even add, because I think a lot of people who are following us, who are following our story, are also influencers in their own way. And I think the perfectionism is just making it about you, right? Making it about me, not about the people who we're trying to impact. And I'm not saying like ever, like just put out anything that just you know, like it's done. So I'm putting it out there, right? I'm not necessarily saying that, but I'm saying that when we write books, when we put out work, it is not for us particularly, right? It is using our God-given stories to impact others, right? His people, his flock, the people who we've been put on this earth to serve, right? And when we have that fear, what I hear is a lot of folks saying that they have a timeline in which that this should be done, right? It should look like this in this time. It should be done at this time. When I'm a PhD program, and whoo, how many drafts have I turned in? You know.
Well, I can also say, like, comparison, right? Comparison is like the thief of joy, right? Like,
one more time. Wait, on the island.
It can be, though, because I can say 5 or 6 years ago, right? You were the one who inspired me, right? You were like, I'm going to start my own business, and you did it. And I was like, well, I could start my own business, right? And so that's where me and Mrs. Mayweather came from. I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. But it's a lot of work, okay? And I just didn't have the capacity. You know, I think about how before, when I would go on job interviews, I would say, yes, I'm very good at multitasking. I can do a lot of different projects at one time, right? This is why you should hire me. And now I'm like, when they're like, what is something you can improve upon? Multitasking. I need to focus on one thing at a time. I'm not good at it. I'm just going to tell you up front, right? Because some people are, but I've realized, like, one, it increases my anxiety to be working on 30 things at once. And I'm probably not going to do the best that I possibly could. And it just doesn't work for me, right? And so the reason why I've stopped and started is because I was like, what's the priority here? Also, when I started, and I think it's gotten a little better because the culture is more focused on wellness and mental health, but like the grind, you sleep when you die, you know, work, that was all I was seeing on my feed. Okay, on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Like, you got to work, you got to hustle, you got to go for it. I'm like, yeah, let me go get this job at Shipped and deliver these groceries on the side, because I got to get this extra money, and I need to be grinding, right? I need to create this blog. I need to be delivering these groceries. I need to be doing my full-time job. I need to be a parent, right? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. And over time, I'm just like, no, I'm not.
And what we really find is oftentimes we end up in the very exact same place that we started at when we end that thing, right? When we end that side hustle or whatever. And I think that's the difference between, you know, when you are starting a business based on service and faith and fate, right? Like the thing that you believe has been your calling. You don't end where you begin. You end in a different place, and that could be a new beginning, or that could be the beginnings of something that no one ever expected for you, right? Or from you. And so, get into the chat, because this chat is lit, right? Candace, right? Shout out to Candace. She said,
my boo Candace.
Yeah, yo boo. She said, Stephanie, have you read Life, I Swear? It's a bunch of stories by Black women curated by Chloe Dolce. Ooh, yeah, I can't even pronounce the last name. But Life, I Swear sounds like a good.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Had to check that out. Mike said bars. Shout out to Mike.
Is that Mr. Couch?
Hey, Mike Couch. Candace said, grind culture is violence. Ooh.
It is. It is, because you're on your own mind. Like, I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I'm not doing enough. You're questioning your steps, right? And I think for a lot of us who are believers, right, I had to go back to faith, right? Yeah. If I am a believer, right, and I believe that all things are ordained, then I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And maybe I'm pushing or putting more things on my plate that God doesn't necessarily want me to.
Yep. And you really helped me manage that, right? Because in a time where I felt that I could do everything, I had to learn that my calling is not to do everything. Mm-hmm. Right? In a time where I had the energy to multitask and compartmentalize so I can get projects off the ground and out in the world to the best of my abilities, you had to be the soundboard saying, but what is the consequence of putting more work out there, right? For more people having to request your time, right? And you already have a problem saying no. Lynn said, work joyfully is my motto. Ooh, work joyfully.
I like that.
I like that. I gotta go now. But thank you so much for this uplifting and inspiring conversation. I appreciate your perspective and wisdom shared. Much love to you both. Oh, and said,
thank you for being here.
Lynn is amazing. We actually are scheduled to talk next week. So, yep, yes. The U of M family, love it. And said multitasking does not exist because we all stop one thing to start another. So yes, Stephanie, doing one thing at a time works well. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Just to go back, I think the gift is prioritizing, right? We hear that all the time, but I know that's what you and I had to do. When I was frustrated about how much you were working, I just asked you, like, what's most important to you in this life, right? And I think you said, like, God and family, and what was 3?
Probably sports or working.
Something like that, but it wasn't work. Like, work was like 4 or 5, and I'm like, but you're putting work before God, like you're putting work before the family. So are you living what you think you are? Good for me too.
Because I'm a scheduler. You know this. I think you in a lot of ways accepted and appreciated that about me and my productivity. But the reality of the situation was everybody got on my schedule but my family. Right? Everybody was able to have their time uninterrupted except for you all. And I think this was probably like 2018 or so when I started being like, no, like this time to this time is uninterrupted family time. I'm not taking no calls at 6 o'clock. I'm not taking no calls at 8. I'm not taking no calls until we put our son to bed, right? And by that time, I know that you're almost asleep. So like, and for me, right, like this is be real, like that left the leftovers for the dissertation, for doing the good work. And it pushed me to try to be more effective, right? I need to learn strategies that impact my efficiency, right? So, doing Pomodoro or being like, all right, like I need this coffee at this time so that I can have enough work to get done with this by this time, right? And really not trying to, again, the perfectionism is what keeps you in stall mode, right? It keeps you stagnant, where I needed a space where I was putting out, it wasn't perfect content. I mean, in a lot of ways, I wouldn't even share one of my published articles, right? Never. But the reality of it is like, I got it done. It's on my resume and it's all done before I become a doctor, right? And which allows for me to go into these interviews for the job that I felt was created for me and say, I did all these things. Of course, they're not reading it, right? They're not looking it up to see what's the quality of this work. They saying, no, this man is not afraid to put work out. And that's what we are looking for. And so, you know, sometimes our fear to be perfect is more about just, I mean, our idea of being perfect is more about just scarcity and fear. Mm-hmm. You know, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in that, but woo, you know, Anne said, Lord have mercy, the level of vulnerability. You know, authenticity is one of the values of doing the good work. I try my best to be as authentic as possible because I believe that my life story is not just for me, right? It is for my family, it's for my wife, it's for our sons, it's for our mothers and our grandmothers, our grandparents, our fathers, right? Like, it's for them to see. Because in a lot of ways, the things that we are doing, people only imagine.
Yeah, or didn't imagine at all.
Never could imagine, right? Even you know, believing in us taking, you know, $5,000 from a mutual fund account and investing in a starter home that had a broken garage door that smelled like St. Bernard's. Lots of work to get that house to where it needed to be. But what, 4 years later, we're selling that home at profits 10 times that much, right? To be able to put down on a home that's brand new that we had to put none of our money into, right? I think that's the type of stories that people will need to hear.
That's the kind of faith you gotta have.
Strong faith, right? Unwavering faith. But you gotta remember to believe, right? Like, yeah. You got to believe. And so, it's past 1 o'clock. It is. We have been doing this thing. I always like to end with what's a word that you have for folks who've been listening. We got 11 folks on here. This is the most people I've had live ever. And so shout out to you, Steph. But what do you want to leave folks with as we go through this last little couple minutes of Women's History Month and highlighting you and your work, your life?
Well, because it's Women's History Month, which I never really celebrate, but thanks for having me anyway. Love on a Black woman today.
Love on a Black woman today.
Because what I have to, I usually have to tell you, like, believe Black women, because usually I'm right. And then you have to double back and realize that I'm right. But just love on her. I got something that was really sweet. I don't know if my therapist sent me the little video collage where it's like all the stars saying like, Black woman, you are strong, you are this, you are that, just on a random day. And it just brought a lot of joy to me that another woman just saw me and, and she know all my dirt and issues and just wanted to tell me that like I was strong and beautiful and loved. And so love on a Black woman today. And every day, not just Women's History Month, like every day, all through the year.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Mwah, mwah. Oh, actually, wait.
I love you, babe. So silly. I can't see Facebook because I'm not on it, but thank you all for being here and supporting.
All right. Am I back yet? Am I back on here yet? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Amazing Facebook family. Thank you so much. You can catch a replay. Of course, we'll be posting this on YouTube, on the Doing the Good Work channel. We'll be here next week as we open this conversation with a good, amazing friend and business colleague as well, Aunt Lynn, next week. So definitely check us out. And of course, as always, keep doing the good work.